consent, so please hit yes. There we go. All right, we're recording. Thank you for joining us. This is our equity assessment group project, and we'll take it away. We have this is me, Corey, Monica, Shamoon, and Shaheen, our equity assessment and we used our high school. Shamoon and I, our high school used Maine West. Okay. So what? So we're talking about culture and climate of the school building and the classrooms. And we decided after looking at our equity assessment that this was an area of great need. Why is this an issue? Equity audit data indicates that 40 to 60% of our categories related to an inclusive school atmosphere that includes all of our learners is not present and in need of improvement. And we are not creating an atmosphere within the school that is representative of our student body. We have a lot of Latino students. We have a lot of other students that aren't being represented, and you'll see throughout this presentation and what we're talking about exactly in relationship to that. How will it be approached? We're going to develop some goals and benchmarks to improve equity audit scores by 2022. We will implement cultural awareness planning, include a wider range of stakeholders in our planning and development process, and we'll try to create more opportunities within the school for cultural celebrations, hopefully reaching a wider range of perspectives. That's our overall objective. So we're going to use these sources for analyzing our data. We have the equity audit that we did. We have panorama data regarding universal culture and climate surveys. We have a 5 essentials survey, and we have comparative data to our other schools within our district and other schools outside of our district. And then this is our equity audit results. So you can see here, it's kind of all over the board, but we're a lot more on the needs improvement side and the no side of it with regard to school climate and environment. And when we completed the survey, we completed it with Jill. Shamoon can chime in. What's Jill's role exactly at D207?
She's like one of the assistant superintendents at the district level. I can't remember like what follows the assistant superintendent title, but she's in charge of adult.
She plays a huge role in equity within our school too. So she helped us with completing this survey, and the 3 of us filled out these answers, and we identified that the way our school looks is a problem. We need to fix that. We identified that sometimes the way the teachers are interacting with the students can be a little bit better or a lot bit better. And then, just making sure that we're also reaching out to our community as well in an equitable way. All right. I'll let Shamoon take it from here.
Yep. And very recently, we pulled out the Panorama staff survey as well, compared it to the one from last fall. And when we simply asked about school climate, about 31% of the staff that responded favorably when it came to their perception of our climate. It did improve slightly from last year. Well, I would say significantly, actually, but still about half the people who took the survey would respond favorably that our culture and climate is representative of our population, and it feels like a good place to be. So, which obviously was another indication that we have more work to do. This next slide captures essentially our culture and climate survey data from the student perspective. And it, as you can see, really towards that bottom, the areas of the biggest growth that we have would be really sense of belonging amongst our students. Although some our students felt 83% felt pretty favorably about our diversity and inclusion in the building, there's still some areas of improvement, as you could see, when it comes to cultural awareness and action, teacher-student relationships, and so on and so forth. And just to take it from another perspective, when we even pulled up our 5 essentials data, you could see here that there's room for growth for even effective leadership and our involvement with our families, although the members who did fill out the 5 essentials survey do feel like it's a supportive environment, teachers collaborate, and instruction is ambitious, but there's still some room for improvement with involvement and leadership. And to be honest, we had to address this issue as well. Our district mission and vision, if you will, is simply to improve learning. While it is vague, you can really put a lot under that umbrella, but we still felt like there's plenty of room for growth in that area. But essentially, you could now focus it a little bit better when you look at our District 207 equity statement, which specifically addresses the need for improving our district through the lens of equity. And a small segment of our district equity statement is represented here. And it simply says we recognize, embrace, and defend the identities, abilities, and voices of our diverse community. We value these multiple and unique identities, abilities, and voices as assets, which is, I believe, a very key word. And then we commit to an equitable and inclusive learning environment. So now we have something to live by, as opposed to what we kind of lived by before, which is simply to improve learning. I think now we can specifically gear it towards equity a little bit better. And when you look at our website, there's actually several bullet points that really fall under this equity statement that give us a purpose and a rhyme and a reason for having the committees now that we have, which we'll speak to a little bit more within our equity department, if you will, our equity leadership team, I should say. So with that being said, we have all this data, we have this mission vision of of the direction we want to go to. We had to create 2 goals that came out of that. And because of the nature of what's going on with our world today, we felt like it was most appropriate to extend the goal to May of 2022. And the idea here is that we would see a 5% increase and a 5% increase with teachers and with students and their perception of our basically our culture and climate. So you can see here is that it shows that we want really 55% of our teachers and staff at Maine West to respond favorably. As you saw earlier in one of those previous slides, it was 49% as far as the most recent. And then we would like to see an improvements in feelings of belonging, for example, by a 5% increase as well when it came to the student perspective.
So some of the things that we talked about with implications and outcomes of our goals is looking at it on what our world looks like right now, but then also what it's going to look like next year and in the years to come. So some of the things that we really wanted to look at right now is what's happening in the virtual setting, specifically with some of the things that are going around with camera policies. We need some clarification and we need some specification on what those policies are and the reasons that we may or may not be requiring students to have their cameras on. Specifically requiring to have cameras on, some students may not feel comfortable with that based on where they live, what's happening in their house, maybe what's going on around them. And so we have to be conscious of that. We also need to be looking at materials and resources, making sure that our at-risk students are supported as much as possible, schools' necessities, internet, and other needs that they may have. We also need to look at what we are doing to plan for school in a post-COVID world. And like Shimon said, that's why we are reaching our goal out to May of 2022. We need to look at the reintroduction of schools' policies and procedures. By doing this, this also gives us the opportunity to make more inclusive changes that may need to be made with a focus on more student input, and then also hope to have that collaboration between staff and more collaboration between staff and students. Further moving, that gives us to what some of our final outcomes of the goal are, is we need to have more student participation in school surrounding culture and climate and policies. We need to have more reflection of student identity. We need to have a greater understanding and empathy, not just between students, but between staff members, also staff to students and students to staff. We also need to be looking at how this can, with this change of climate and culture, how that's going to improve our academics. We're hoping for greater student involvement in school and activities, greater family involvement, and then more community support.
And as I mentioned earlier, we did form a district equity leadership team, and now these implications that Monica even referred to are really essentially being addressed in every facet in that equity leadership team. And more recently, we have broken down our goals, if you will, that really are aligned with that mission and vision, and broken down into bullet points. And each bullet point that you can now cluster is now really targeted towards one of these subcommittees under the district equity leadership team. So, for example, like something could come out of the human resources, basically subcommittee of the district equity leadership team. And then as a result, what you may see that in the long term is that we may, there may be like a hiring decision made through the lens of equity that really so like now people who are being hired at our district are going to go through and understand really what the expectations are in terms of equity for our district, and then to go through specific professional development that really require you to like learn a lot of this information as well, so it could drive again where we want this culture and climate to end up.
Another thing to add is that it's been put on our school website. We've been very vocal about this at Maine West. So by being vocal, we are encouraging our stakeholders to participate and to be transparent with what we're doing. We're putting that out there. So you can see from our website that there is a section on equity.
So what is this plan going to look like? So we laid it out in the 3 years, starting with this year in Q1 with creating the subcommittees and our district equity team that Corey and Shalon spoke to already, along with doing some book studies, specifically focusing on this year. So you want to talk about race. And then moving throughout the year, working on SOAR, which is our students organized against racism group, and having them facilitate those courageous conversations that kind of speak to the heart of miscommunications and misunderstandings between various groups. We also want to continue to implement some district-wide equity PD and the ongoing equity website. And then at the end of the fourth quarter, we're going to end the year with our panorama survey, hoping for that anticipating that 2.5% growth, acknowledging all stakeholders. For example, having a statement about Ramadan go-offs to staff saying, hey, we have this population of students that is celebrating Ramadan. They may be coming to you without having eaten, so be aware of changes that may be occurring. So putting those out so that staff are aware of situations and are able to support students. Then next year, continuing with another book study, White Fragility. Then this is where we're going to get a little more into the surrounding areas, which goes to the heart of our goals, removal of Native American images. And we want to do an emphasis on the Danielson framework around creating a positive classroom environment. We want to continue then throughout the year, updating images throughout the building to be more representative of our population. Q4 is when we're going to initiate our first Unity Week, which we'll speak to later, and end with our end of the year survey, anticipating that 5% growth has been achieved. And year 3, our new book study will be Culturally Responsive Teaching. We also want to review our data and see if our goals have been met and make any additions or modifications and continuations as needed. We also want to continue training for non-instructional staff and reviewing the supervisions of the Danielson framework and drive those difficult conversations. Have our second Unity Week and take that survey again and ensure that progress is continuing to be made and that we have maintained our growth.
Okay, so let's take a look at a little bit of what the school looked like before and after. So these are some steps that have already been taken. And in the next few slides, there are some images of steps that could be taken that we talked about in year 2, making corrections on. So how can we say that we value inclusion and acceptance of all backgrounds when we don't model it? Well, we have the Native American logo that has finally gone away, and now we are just the MW for Maine West. And previously, we had this type of imagery painted onto the ground, onto the floors of our school, and it has been removed. We do still have some that will change with renovations, as you can see up here, upon the entrance of the school. The gymnasium has had all Native American imagery removed. And we'll see that in another slide. Our focus for behavior in the school is around respect at West, respecting yourself, respecting your space, our space, and respecting others. So for me, specifically in the SEL classroom, this is huge, and we talk a lot about this. But what's really difficult is sometimes respect, while this is a poster that's in nearly every classroom on their whiteboard, we don't spend time acknowledging what respect looks like to different people and how we achieve it from individual to individual. And so, one of the things I do is try to understand what that individual level of respect means and being very clear about what respect means to me. And so an example would be I had a very real conversation with my students where I said, do you know how you respect me? And I had them answer. And I said, you respect me by passing your classes and doing well in school. I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if, I'm your least favorite person in the world, but the way you respect me is if you pass your classes and do well in school. So everybody has, while we understand that respect should be given, if we expect to have it, we don't necessarily understand each other's meaning of the word. So being clear about that would be a conversation that definitely needs to be had moving forward when we talked about those conversations between staff and staff, staff and students, students and staff, etc. Because the room doesn't solely belong to the teacher. I know that we like to think of it as our home away from home, but one of the things that I try really, really hard to do is, aside from this corner that I've made for myself, my little teacher cave, as I call it, we have things that the students value. Like I learned what Juice World is this year, and I said, all right, let's put some Juice World up in the room. My students have value in music, and they care a lot about rap in general and beats, and these are things that I actually have a background in. So to create a sense of belonging, we create a sense of ownership. It's not my room, it's our room, and I want the students to feel that way. So this is a conversation that we're going to be driving moving forward, is that it's not your school, it's our school. It's not your room, it's our room. It's a shared space, and so we need to treat it that way. So this is our work in progress. We're turning this into a studio in the back room, and we've been cutting up the soundproof foam and just putting some cool imagery back there to make it a little more homey. But making it a place you want to be. It's not very sterile. In fact, I would say, if I have an image of it, there's a teacher I share the room with has put some posters up that are a little outdated and old, and so it feels very sterile, and it's creating an atmosphere that's conducive to learning. It has to change. We talked briefly about Ramadan and how we're acknowledging more of the diversity of our student body. And previously, school activities have been centered around the dominant cultures of the school. And so you can see here that this was the case. And this is something that has been addressed by the district moving forward, something that we want to see become a change. Our wall, enter to learn, go forth to serve. We want to change these types of things to, maybe something like this, where it's warrior pride, right? Our Native American logos and paraphernalia have been removed. We are no longer promoting imagery like this. Okay. Removing the Native American logo from everywhere. You can just see here that it's being removed, right? Even on our paraphernalia, like our clothing, right? We do have some staff members that still wear the old paraphernalia that we have, like the old clothes or you know, I don't know, whatever, like headbands or whatever it might be, and that does have the Native American logo on it. And so, you know, some of the conversations that are going to be difficult moving forward is about, you know, helping those staff members understand what messages they're sending out, whether they know or don't know whether they're doing it or not. So, you know, just having that kind of conversation about belonging and what it means, and inclusivity and equity moving forward. We've removed the Native American, this tribal dance that we were doing during homecoming, and the logo in the gym there has also been removed. So pep assemblies no longer have this as part of the participation, and this is what the gym looks like now. And then from the earlier image, the Native American logo again in the gym removed. We have an American flag now, and it's been painted over. This is kind of cool. One of the teachers I work with has not only gone to Maine West when it first opened the first year, but he's also a teacher there now too. So he's been here for a very, very long time, and he shared some of his old yearbooks. And you can see the Native American drawing from the administration. Oh, great, white feathers, it says. And this is the first ever yearbook. Got the little hot rod and the greasers, right? Here's 1968, using the imagery of the Native American as their cover. And the school brought in this gentleman, Irwin Holmes, who was a full-blooded Chippewa, to bring some kind of authenticity to the brand that was created for the school. And here's some more imagery of, you know, staff dressing up in traditional Native American garb and promoting the school. Okay.
So how can we start to improve our culture and climate? We need to start identifying with all cultural representation, like we've been speaking about, and have this a cultural awareness club, which is has equal representation of different cultures, and not just among students, teachers, parents, community. Again, really trying to reach out to all of our stakeholders. Some of the goals that they can have, or that they would have, is to really look at the following questions. So some of the most important things: how can culture be representative in curriculum? What about in language classes? Physical education, so bringing in different sports, different activities from cultures from around the world. Looking at our holidays, how can each culture learn to reach out and to educate others? Discrimination, how can we discuss this in an educational setting? And then also looking at various elective courses that can enhance culture and diversity within our school. We also need to, as a group, to look back and reflect. What does our library look like? What are the books that we are holding that we have? Do we need to make changes there? Looking at how are we celebrating the various holidays that represent our students, parents, community members? How can students understand other cultures and look at the sensitivities that they and can express sensitivity? How can students, where's that open forum that we can have students to discuss, such as those courageous conversations? Looking at persons important to cultures and heroes in cultures. And then again, looking at some of that, getting our families involved in cultural diversity and getting our community members involved in diversity. Then how can we build some culture? Looking at friendships that our students have. It's natural to gravitate to those that one can identify culturally with. How can we help students meet and identify with students from different cultures? How can we make new students feel proud and proud of themselves, and instead of trying to assimilate? looking at the differences. How can we celebrate those differences? How can we have those dialogues with students that during political events and policies, having those conversations and those dialogues around it, looking at the discrimination that we have and systemically within our cultures. How can students find the support that they need? And how can we build a positive climate to assist our students and to help them identify and relate to others? Some of the things that we're doing right now are that we have are in bold. So these are things that are student-led, student-focused. We have a variety of clubs and activities. We do have our leaders reaching out and looking for diverse student participation in said clubs. We do have some ethnic activities and programs for the rest that put on for the rest of the student body. We have student leadership groups. And we do have SOAR to have those conversations and to kind of work as a moderator. Some of the changes that we may need to make depending on how our survey is going, we may need to develop more of a peer mentoring program beyond what our current program is for tutoring. Maybe we need to look at do we need to start celebrating events or accomplishments each month versus just kind of doing it when stuff comes up or when it might fit in, and looking maybe into student support groups. So do we need to help students of various groups come together and support each other in whatever ways that they feel that they need that assistance? Looking at some of the administration-led activities, we need to possibly start bringing in some of the ethnic presenters to help with some of that professional development for our teachers and non-instructional staff. Continue with our school culture committee and get some student leaders involved in that, looking at our cross-curricular instruction, the SEL inclusion, which was part of our year 2 plan, multicultural, multilingual signage, again, part of our year 2 plan, and continuing to collaborate with our parent and community organizations, again, really trying to get in all of our stakeholders that we can. Our big kind of culminating purpose would be to have traditionally it might be called Diversity Week. We're kind of thinking of more of a unity week for our school community. Maybe we look at suspending our regular schedule for the day, students and staff attending various workshops. This would be the opportunity to bring in some community speakers, current students and alum, faculty and staff to really work on education and having conversation. Possibly doing this could be after school, so assemblies, advisories, looking at those inclusion and diversity conversations. Choosing in ELA, choosing a book from multicultural perspective. Possibly having a hobby fair, a pen pal campaign, life events. So what do weddings look like in various cultures? What do rites of passage look like in various cultures? Really kind of opening that up. And then also looking at symbolism for countries and state flags might be a good way. Every colors and flags have a meaning. So having to understand what the color green represents is important and can help people understand various cultures. Also having possible cultural planning, and again, looking at those various events within various cultures to help us. And here are some resources that we found that have been successful in various schools and districts. This is one that I found the most interesting, that was actually put together by a corporation, and it helps kind of spell out all of these different activities that you can do in organizations, but that are really applicable to schools. And so it's 88 different ways, and it touches on all different aspects of cultures and societies. Is the very last one, diversity in 88 ways. So so these are some great resources of what's been working, and schools to help improve equity within buildings and districts.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our video about equity at Maine West High School. We look forward to any of your feedback. End this recording. There we go.